And welcome back to SWBA Today. And in today's episode, we're going to be recapping the games that took place today, as this was the season finale for the SWBA. But the playoffs are now looming and getting ready to start. So we'll be talking about that. We'll be talking about the SWBA standings. We're talking about the SWBA play-in. And then we're also going to be looking at an SWBA team that nobody wants to see in the Western Conference. And so let's go ahead and jump into the SWBA scoreboard. And so, look, everybody was in action today. We're briefly going to go through the games, especially the games where we have teams that essentially they are looking forward to next season. And so we'll briefly talk about the hopes that those teams have, and then just we'll be talking about the teams that are headed to the postseason here. And so let's go ahead and jump into it. And so starting with the first game, you got the Orlando Magic versus the Atlanta Hawks. And so you have two teams that are going to be into the play-in situation. We'll talk more about that in a moment. I think really the key takeaway out of this for me is that you got a chance to see a younger player in Anthony Black get a chance to play for the Orlando Magic. I think that he's going to have a major role this year and moving forward with this team. He had 20 points, 10 rebounds, 2 assists, and 3 steals. And on the other side of things, the Atlanta Hawks played Terrence Mann. And so he came over from the Los Angeles Clippers. He had 19 points, 4 assists in the game, and 3 rebounds. He could be maybe a real X factor for this team as they get ready to make their play-in push. And so next up, you got the Celtics taking care of the Hornets 93-86. There were not any starters that played in this game for the Boston Celtics. I clearly think that they're going to be at the end of the Eastern Conference when it comes down to things in the Eastern Conference Finals or whatnot. And then with the Hornets, look, I think that the bottom line here is that they've got to get healthy. They somehow have to get LaMelo Ball to get a full season in along with Brandon Miller. And this is a team that very much is looking forward to the SWBA draft coming up. Next up, you got the Knicks taking care of the Nets 113-105. Yet again, this was another game in which you had starters that were rested. The Knicks, the good thing about this is they get a win. I think it's going to be interesting because we've been talking about the Knicks and how they've struggled with the teams that have really won this year at the top of the conference. And so do they turn the page into the playoffs? Going to be interesting with the Brooklyn Nets. I think that it's all about what are they going to do, I think, with Cam Johnson. Are they going to be trading him? Are they building with him? I think that that is something that they're going to have to ask themselves. I do like the fact that Drew Timme had another strong game in this one. I think that maybe the Nets have found something there. He had 11 points and 8 rebounds and 2 assists. And so I'm curious to see if they continue to utilize him next season. But this is a team that very much is looking forward to this upcoming draft. Next up, you got the Pacers and the Cavs. And so the Pacers win 126-118. Once again, you have two teams that they sat their starters there, got a chance to see some of the younger players play. The Pacers as a team, I think, have been trending in the right direction because they've been so hot as of late. They're looking much like the team that really got to the Eastern Conference Finals last season. The Cavs, look, it's prove it time now because we've been seeing that they've been winning all these games during the regular season, and now we're about to find out, can Donovan Mitchell finally take that step as a player? Can he get the Cavs out of the Eastern Conference into the finals? And so next up, you got the Wizards versus the Miami Heat. Probably the shocker of the day is even with, the Miami Heat not playing all their players out there, the Wizards get the win today. So 119-118. Shout out to Jaime Jaquez Jr. Watched a lot of his games there at UCLA. Man, he had a day today. He had 41 points. He also had 7 assists and 10 rebounds. So talk about almost a triple-double with 41 points. That's incredible in 41 minutes too. And so 17 of 25 from the field. So I think that he was really the major key takeaway out of this game. But you got to give the Wizards a lot of credit for getting it done. And I think that, look, they did a great job as far as playing their younger players this year. I think it's certainly going to help them, especially Bub Carrington. He had 15 and 9 and 7 rebounds in this game. I think he's going to be a guy that could be a triple-double waiting to happen out there. And Alex Sarr, I think he played very solid this year. But once again, this is a team that is probably going to end up into the lottery. And let's see if they can put all these picks together at some point. So next up, you got the Chicago Bulls and the Sixers. The Bulls, look, they are going to be in the play-in situation at the 9th seed right now. And both teams look, there were not very many starters out there. The Bulls rested their starters at half. The Sixers, look, they have been going with a whole different bunch every game because they've been so injured. And so the Sixers are definitely looking forward to getting this team pulled apart and trying to figure out what they're going to do. I think a lot of their issues are probably going to start with what's going to go on with Embiid, and then they can go from there. With the Chicago Bulls, they finished with the exact same record as they did last season, minus another star on their team. And I think that the younger players have taken a major step here. THT has a very good one here. He has 17 points and 6 assists off the bench there. And that's Talen Horton-Tucker. And so next up, you got the Pistons and the Bucks. And so, look, you had, both teams kind of play some of their players early on, especially with the Detroit Pistons. And this ended up being, I think, probably the game of the day for the most part. We'll be talking about another game of the day as well. But this one went into overtime. And I think that, like, the key takeaway out of this was Pat Covington. I think that he just played just incredible. And, man, he just couldn't miss. I mean, he was getting downhill, getting to the bucket and everything else. He had 43 points, 5 assists, and 11 rebounds, plus 7 here in 44 minutes and 16 of 29 from the field. And so, look, I think that Doc Rivers has got to find a way to get this guy into the rotation again if they're going to make a serious push. And then, with the Pistons, look, it was all about playing these younger guys and just giving some of these other guys some of the rhythm. Malik Beasley did play in this one. He had 23 points. He's a candidate for the 6th man of the year in the SWBA, so that was good to see there. But, I think that the Pistons, they're ready to go. They didn't have Cade Cunningham out there today. And again, it's just kind of resting players, getting them ready for the SWBA postseason. Next up, you got the Nuggets and the Rockets. And so this one actually was important because the Nuggets, with this win today, 126-111, they secured the 4th seed, I believe, in the Eastern Conference. We'll take a look at the standings here, but they needed this one. They did not need to fall into the play-in situation. This is a team that very much needs a little bit of rest. They need to reset here. And they had another good game, from Jokic. He had 18 points in this one, 7 assists. He had 7 rebounds, played very strong. Jamal Murray, pretty good considering coming off the hamstring, 16 points, 3 assists, and 7 rebounds. So that was a plus. With the Rockets, they played their guys too as well. Jalen Green, look, he had 2 points in this one, 2 assists, and he had 2 rebounds in 21 minutes and 0 of 7 from the field, negative 17. It's probably the scariest thing that I have with the Rockets is just that he cannot have those type of floors in these type of games. And so not a very good one for him today. Then with Van Fleet, he had 15. You had Alperen Sengun. I think he's very underrated. One of my favorite bigs to watch in this league. He had 14, 4, and 5. So I think he's had a very strong season. But again, this Rockets team, they're playing with house money. They lose today, but they're going to be an interesting team to watch here in the postseason. And so next up, you got the Memphis Grizzlies taking care of the Dallas Mavericks, 132-97, there. And so with that, I think that the bottom line here, as we look at that, is just that you're looking at a team that they're into the play-in situation. The Grizzlies, the Mavs are too, but both teams are kind of limping into this thing for different reasons. The Mavs with injuries and the trade nonsense that they had. The Grizzlies, look, the stuff that's been going on the court with the gestures and then the coach, they have a mess there. And so I'm going to be curious to see how both of these teams really respond once the play-ins start here. And so we'll talk about that in a moment. Next up, you got the Timberwolves getting a huge win today. I believe they qualified for the playoffs and are not into the play-in. We'll take a look at that in a moment. 116-105, beating the Jazz. And so they needed to get this one done. Anthony Edwards goes for 43 points. Next up, you got with the Thunder and the Pelicans. We know what the deal is with the Thunder. So they win 115-110. And I think that they rest several players. The Pelicans, I think that the biggest issue for them is trying to figure out what they want to do with Zion Williams. And look, do they move on from him? Do they keep him? I think that this team is really needing to reset personally. So I think that maybe they might consider moving on, but we'll see what they do here in the SWBA draft. Next up, you got the Raptors and then you got the Spurs. And so look, two young teams that I think that they're trending in the right direction. I know it wasn't the greatest season for the Raptors there, but you have to love what they are building. And I think that if they can get Brandon Ingram back, which they did re-sign him, if they get him back from the ankle injury and they can get a consistent season from him, and they get a nice draft pick coming up, suddenly, the Raptors become very interesting in the East. The Spurs, I love what they're doing with Wemby. You have Stephon Castle, and these guys, I think, are trending in the right direction with De'Aaron Fox. And so I think a year of these guys being healthy, being on the same page, they're going to be just fine. Next up, I think probably the game of the day, along with that Bucks game, was this Clippers and Warriors game, because the Warriors had to win this game in order to stay really into the playoff situation, or else they were going to go into the play-in. And the Clippers on the road take care of the Warriors 124-119. It looked tough for the Golden State Warriors initially, because Steph really, it looked like he wasn't going to be able to kind of get it going as a scorer. And then he just kind of erupted, I think, in the fourth and just kind of in the overtime and such, and was able to hit some big shots there. But unfortunately, the Warriors were not able to get enough stops. And look, this is going to lead into our next segment, talking about maybe a team that you don't want to see. In this game, you had some big performances from James Harden. He had 39. He had 10 assists in this. And you had Kawhi Leonard with 33 and 7. And then they had Zubac with 22 points as well. And so this team is very tough to beat. And then on the other side of the thing, with the Golden State Warriors, Steph Curry with 36. You had Jimmy Butler with 30. Draymond had 14. He was knocking down three-point shots. In fact, he was 4 of 6 in this one, but just not enough to get to take care of business against the Los Angeles Clippers. And so now they're going to have to be into the play-in situation. So we'll talk about that in a moment. Next up, you got the Lakers and the Trailblazers. And so the Trailblazers win this game 109-81. I think maybe the key storyline out of this is that Coach Chauncey Billups got an extension with the Trailblazers, which is solid. I think that the Trailblazers have definitely shown some improvement. And so we'll see what happens if they can put it together next season. The Lakers, look, clearly they're going to be into the third seed. We'll be talking about them a little bit more as the week goes along, and just the injury update around LeBron James. Lastly, you got the Sacramento Kings taking care of the Phoenix Suns 109-98, officially ending the Suns season. And it's been a disastrous season for them. And I think that they've got to figure out what they're going to do, because Bradley Beal has the no trade clause. You have Kevin Durant, who I think he's still a tradable piece, but with that amount of money, who's going to give you those type of assets to get him? So I think that the Suns have got to do a complete reset as well. It's going to be interesting to see what they do over the offseason. And so next up, I wanted to go ahead and jump briefly into the SWBA standings and taking a look here at the Eastern Conference and the West, as you see that these standings are now set. This is it. And so we talked about the Orlando Magic and the Hawks. Now they're 7-8, 9-10 game. That's going to be Wednesday night with the Chicago Bulls. Then when you go over here to the West, taking a look at that, this is what the finals are looking like now. So talking about that Warriors game and the significance there. So if the Warriors were able to win, they would have avoided the play-in situation, but they're going to have to go into the play-in situation. The Clippers now lock up that 5th seed, so they're guaranteed they're in the playoffs. And then the Timberwolves, look, they were down into that play-in situation. They slid up over top of the Warriors. And so we talked about that a couple weeks ago, how both of those teams, the Clippers and the Timberwolves, had maybe the tougher schedules down the stretch, but they also held the tiebreakers over the Warriors. And so I think that that really kind of paid off here in the last game of the season. And so next, we wanted to jump into maybe the team that nobody wants to see. And I think it starts with the Los Angeles Clippers today, because I just got a chance to look at them again today. And I think that the bottom line with the Clippers is it's with number 2. If Kawhi Leonard is playing the way that he has been playing, this is going to be a tough out, because James Harden looks resurgent. He looks a lot like he did back in his Houston days. And it's been just that type of season for him, because a lot of people were thinking, like, I don't know if James Harden can be the scorer that he once was. And he's showing us that he can also be that scorer. He can still distribute the basketball like that. Yes, he struggles defensively, but this is a team with Coach Ty Lue. They understand principles, they understand spots and where to be. And then you have Kawhi Leonard, you have some other guys out there, maybe Zubac, who's in the running for being, a defensive player of the year, has really kind of cleaned up some of those things and mistakes. And I think that was really what you saw in this game against the Golden State Warriors. I think it was their ability to kind of hold on and get some stops when they needed to. They were able to kind of force Steph into some turnovers late. And then, with Kawhi Leonard, you see the look right there in the picture. That's exactly what he's doing to teams. He's just giving you the stone look as he's just lighting you up for critical buckets. And so it looked a lot like the Kawhi Leonard that I saw with the Toronto team that won the title. Now, I'm not saying that the Clippers are going to win the title. I'm just telling you, I saw that type of energy from Kawhi Leonard. And so I just think that that's a team. I don't know if too many people want to see the Clippers right now. That's a hot team in the West. And so, I think that that's the team there. And so let me know in the comments what you guys are thinking about the Clippers and if that is another team that maybe nobody wants to see here in the West. And so lastly, let's go ahead and look at the play-in situation. And look, here's what the play-in is looking like now. So Tuesday, you got the Atlanta Hawks versus the Orlando Magic. Remember, we led the show with these two teams playing. And look, they're going to have all their players out there. You got Trae Young, who led the league in assists. You got Ben Carroll, you got Franz Wagner out there. Like, everybody's going to be available for this game. I think it's going to be very interesting to see what happens here. Then you got the Chicago Bulls and the Miami Heat in that 9-10 game on Wednesday. The Chicago Bulls, I think, own the series lead against the Miami Heat. But again, you're talking about Eric Spoelstra. You're talking about a coach that, he's got that championship type of DNA, man. So he's going to probably make some real adjustments here against the Chicago Bulls, who have been one of the hotter teams in the Eastern Conference. So I think that that's going to be a good one. And then next up, look, the Warriors and the Grizzlies. I think that this one's going to get a bit saucy right here. This has been like kind of a rival in the past. And I think that, look, you got a Warriors team that clearly, I think, they should have been, I think, in the playoffs, like not been in the play-in situation. Really, when it comes down to the play-ins, like the Warriors have not been the most successful team. And so this is going to be interesting against a very chippy Memphis team that it can go either way, because you're going to get Ja Morant giving you everything that he's got. He's going to be doing the stuff and the crowd and everything else. Like, he's going to be amped up for this one. So you got to overcome that. You got Draymond with his emotions as well. Like, it's going to be very interesting. Two teams, look, obviously wanting to get out of that play-in situation. So we'll see what happens there. And then with the Mavs and the Kings, look, you have two teams that I think the Kings, they've limped in, but they haven't limped in, I think, as much as the Mavs. The Mavs, look, clearly this team got hit when they traded Luka away. I don't know if they've necessarily recovered from that. It's going to be all about what you get from Anthony Davis. Can he even be there for the entirety of the series? Because I think that if the Mavs want to have any chance at all, he has got to be on the floor. I mean, that's just the bottom line there. And then with the supporting cast, is that going to be enough? You do not have Kyrie out there due to the injury. It is good that they have Derek Lively and Gafford and some of these guys coming back now, but I don't know if they can put it together to make a serious run. I like the Kings initially in this game with DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine. These guys have been there in the play-in before. We saw this movie with the Chicago Bulls. I think they're good enough to get at least a win out of this. Let's see what happens. But here's your play-in tournament. Here's the schedule. You guys let me know in the comments what you guys are thinking about, the final standings and just what your expectations are as we get ready for the SWBA play-ins. You see it. We start Tuesday, April 15th, and then Wednesday, we have our 9-10 games left. And let me know as well what you guys think about maybe the team that nobody wants to see in the Los Angeles Clippers. And as we always say around here, see the game and be the game. I'll see you guys on the next one. All right, peace.